Well, it is Sunday evening, and the LORCANA challenge for Atlanta just finished, and would you believe it? An Amber Amethyst deck ended up winning it all out of 2,000 players. Now, before we get started and taking a look at this, and there will be some gameplay later on outlining how crazy and innovative this deck is, I'm in no way, shape, or form trying to take credit for this, but if you remember back when I posted a Snow White list and I was posting up some gameplay showing like this deck is actually doing work against meta decks, and what you really saw with this package was that Snow White was able to utilize your discard pile to generate advantage. And while it would bring it back to your hand, it could be very strong because you could bring back high cost characters, low cost characters for ink, whatever it is you need, utility options, and you can build your deck with one or two crabs, one or two Rafikis, whatever you need, a couple of Pinocchios to get it into your discard to use it for basically a toolbox for the Snow White. Well, fast forward to into the Inklands, where Joshua piloted this deck to a first place finish. And this is not his exact list, but I kind of pieced together what I think could be similar to his list. He might not have played Friends, for example. I don't think I saw him play that. But this deck is so incredible and innovative because what you see him using here, which is crazy. First of all, he's using Fairy Godmother, the 3-drop Pure Heart. Let me actually switch the view, guys. Sorry, because I don't know. Sometimes Dreamborn doesn't show it on the recording properly. But he uses the Fairy Godmother Pure Heart in order to, well, first of all, it's a good body, but this card synergizes with the 1-drop Cinderella in order to tap down cards. Because whether you raw play the Cinderella or it's in your discard and then you get it back with the PERDITA, it will exert opposing characters for you. So you have an exerting engine, which I've talked so much about, saying like this game needs more ways to exert ready characters. You have an exerting engine with Fairy Godmother, and you have an exerting engine with the Pinocchios. So really good there. But what's even more impactful and incredible is this deck is, I don't want to say completely X-proof, but it is very discard-proof, and it is very anti-be prepared, right? And with set 3, Ruby Sapphire, Ruby Amethyst, which is what it went up against in the finals and ended up taking it, PERDITA being able to endlessly recycle things like Chernobog's Followers to quest and draw more cards. You don't need any cards in your hand, you'll just draw during your turn when you quest with this. The Cusco, go ahead and be prepared my board, I'll just draw more cards. If you let the PERDITA live, it's going to continue to quest and recycle those Cuscos potentially. It can recycle, like I said, Cinderellas with a Fairy Godmother on board, that's even more advantage. It can recycle Piglet for aggro questing power. It can recycle Pinocchios for tap down. It can do a lot of different toolbox-esque kind of things, similar to what Snow White would do. The difference is PERDITA puts them into play, but obviously PERDITA only works with characters cost 2 or less, whereas Snow White could bring back anything from the discard back to your hand. So a very innovative deck. Of course, you're playing 4-Mim Fox, continually one of the best cards in the game, and even better because of the extra exerting engines that you get off the Fairy Godmother. So just a very interesting toolbox-esque kind of deck, and of course you run the powerhouse that is MUFASA for more anti-be prepared. Good luck answering my threats, and then the Rapunzels as well, just super synergistic. There was, I think, again, if you watch for the matches that I'm about to post here, and we're going to get to it in just a second, you crash the Fairy Godmother, it's a 3/4 body, you put 3 damage on it, right? Take out a Mim Snake, you take out anything that X, 3 and X, and then you Rapunzel heal it up, you bounce the Rapunzel back with a Mim card. It's just like, you win the game. A Chernobog for good measure, and a Surfer Stitch. Again, I'm not sure if he played Surfer Stitch. I opted for 1. He may have played 2 Chernobog. I've opted for 1 here. But once all the deck lists are released, we'll see what's kind of being played. And what's also nice about this deck, unlike my Snow White deck played a lot of Uninkables because I needed a lot of those utility options. You saw me playing like the big Elsas and stuff. You don't obviously play that in this because your toolbox is much lower to the ground. So your Uninkable count is much more manageable. And this is what I think made the deck way more competitive compared to like a version that I would play with Snow White, because you could brick quite hard with that deck. And like I discussed in my tier list, where I actually said Amber Amethyst was like low tier, but I was talking about the aggro version. This version I don't think is necessarily like top tier, S tier or anything, but it is a very innovative deck that obviously caught a lot of people by surprise, and it is very effective. And it's interesting to see if this will be adapted for Ursula's return. But yeah, being only playing 10 uninkables and the PERDITA is basically the only thing that you will really brick on. You're probably going to be able to play out these and either get questing power or get card draw because they're only 4. This is the only thing that will really brick up your hand. The Chernobog, we all know, right? You put all your graveyard or discard pile back into your deck or the characters, and then you play this out for cheaper. So it is very interesting to see. Heavy on the Amethyst, well, not really that heavy. It's pretty evenly split, actually, 34 to 26. And just a couple of songs, because again, you want to play to the Mufasa. But this is a very awesome and interesting deck list, and super high props to Joshua. And if he built it himself or somebody helped him build it, very innovative deck. I loved this combination. I'm telling you guys, the Snow White deck was like putting in work against like all the meta decks when I was testing it. And I remember people commenting saying, oh, this deck sucks, like I'm just losing on ladder with it. And that's fair, right? It can be very bricky, which is understandable, but it's so awesome to see that somebody was able to take this color pairing, take it to a higher level beyond the aggro strategy that everybody paired it with, and that innovative deck ended up winning the whole thing in the Lorcana challenge for Atlanta. So let's go ahead and jump into some gameplay and see how the deck actually performs. Alright, my little girl sneezed right there, but let's get into the actual gameplay. Here we're going second against Emerald Amethyst, and this is the set 3 meta in the lab on Pixelborn before it updates for including everything else. But here, we're going to try to mulligan for a very playable hand, and again, the deck list that you saw at the beginning is what I'm kind of running here. This may not be the exact list that Joshua ran, but I'm imagining it's going to be pretty close. So we have both of our crabs, and we only played 2, so against Emerald Amethyst, I'm not sure if crab is really all that impactful. Like, it's good against the Queen's Castle, but that's pretty much all I would really try to use it against. The opponent starts off by inking a Cloud Kicker and passing with no 1-drop though, so that's very interesting. We're going to go ahead and ink a crab and play a Chernobog's Followers. This, again, just another thing that when we quest, we can banish it and bring it back with the Perdita later on, but that's still a ways away. We have to first draw the Perdita and also have enough ink to play it. So we'll see what the opponent wants to do here. They're thinking quite hard. So I'm only going to include 2 matches because these are a bit grindy, these matches. And again, on the draw for both of these matches is what you're going to see. So the opponent clearly drew, I'm pretty sure they drew a Cursed Merfolk there, otherwise they would have played it on turn 1. But they go ahead and they ink an Ursula, Deceiver of All, which you always like to see, and play out that Cursed Merfolk. So we're going to go ahead and quest with our Chernobog Followers. Misplay on my part because I should have banished it if I was going to quest, because obviously the opponent could quest and play a Mim Fox here, which would be really bad for me. But I play out the Cusco on turn 2, so again, just kind of fresh with the deck, right? The version that I'm used to playing with the Snow White, I have to adapt to this new Perdita version. It's not the end of the world if they do have the Fox, but it's definitely not a situation where you'd want to have that negative advantage. Sure enough, they do have it, so they're going to be able to save their Merfolk there, take out my Chernobog's Followers, and now this Mim essentially can go 2 for 1. But again, the advantage that you build with this deck is pretty strong because the Perdita is just pure advantage, right? I was watching the top 4, I think. I caught a glimpse of it before I had to like go do some other stuff, and I saw people randomly in the chat saying like Perditas are selling out and all this stuff, and I'm like, oh, that's interesting. I got 3 foil ones and 2 non-foils, so yeah, I'm going to be hyped to try this deck when I have some time, hopefully for Ursula's return. Anyways, I'm going to hardcast a Bare Necessities, and I don't even see what I pulled out of the hand there. Either Friends or Queen's Castle, most likely, and then drop down a Chernobog's Followers. The opponent inks their Tinkerbell, which I like to see because I have to draw the Peter Pan in order to out that, which would be kind of tough. They drop a rabbit and draw a card and pass turn. We draw Mufasa, and again, in this particular matchup, I don't think Mufasa is too valuable. They probably just leave it on the board and just quest through me anyways with that Mufasa, and being on the draw, I do have to play a little bit more reactive to the opponent. So you're going to see me opt to not use the Chernobog's Followers to banish and draw a card. Instead, drop the Mim Fox and replay the Chernobog's Followers. Only 3 cards in hand, but I'm setting up for a Sung Friends on the other side. Or, I don't think Sung is a word, right? So I'm going to be singing Friends, hopefully the next turn with the Mim Fox. That's why I set it up this way. They do play the Queen's Castle, and I'm like, okay, that's a bit of a problem. They're going to put the rabbit on it. And fun, like, they quest with the rabbit, which I can understand, like, they want to bait me into taking out their rabbit. They draw a card, they still gain the lore off of the castle. So I'm like, I drew the Fox for turn, and I'm like, okay, I think the play here is going to be to take out the castle. Again, if you watched those matches in the Lorcana Challenge for Atlanta, you saw how long some of those turns took. I'm somebody who usually plays pretty fast, hence all the misplays. But here, you don't want to just waste time. So I'm going to double bounce the Fox so I can keep that bounce in hand if I need to use it again. Quest with the Followers and use the ability since the rabbit would just crash into it otherwise. And I want to draw something that I think might be a little bit more useful for ink. So I'm not sure if inking the snake here would have been the best choice. Because I was thinking, like, do I ink the Follower since I already have one engraved now? And and play Snake to bounce back Mim, but then I was like, no, I value the board presence a little bit more, but I should probably aim to ink the Mufasa here. Anyways, we know they have a Cursed Merfolk. They actually have two, and so they develop a wide board here, but they're still not putting on a lot of questing pressure. They are putting on questing pressure now, but they haven't gained a lot of lore earlier on. So I'm gonna go ahead and sing Friends with the Mim Fox, as I was planning to do last turn if the opponent didn't castle there, and the Kit Cloud Clicker throwing back my Churnabox followers doesn't really impact me too much. The opponent is going to draw off their rabbit, and unfortunately we are just one ink away from playing that Rapunzel, but I'm hoping that the opponent doesn't opt to challenge my Fox with their Kit Cloud Clicker and they sing Friends instead, and I'm like, that's great, because unless they have a Fox here that they want to trade into my Fox, I'm going to be able to draw 2 off my Rapunzel. And this is what I mean, like, whether you play off the top deck with a Perdita or you have Rapunzel draw engine, you don't care about the discard of the Emerald decks usually. Okay, unfortunately they do indeed have another Fox, so we're probably going to lose our Fox there. That's a little unfortunate, but again, the opponent sacrifices some board presence to do so. And it looks like they're in a really commanding position here, right? We top deck the Pinocchio, which isn't necessarily too useful in this particular scenario. So right now I'm just going to opt to take out the Merfolk for free and then cycle back the Mim Fox. So you can see saving that Mim Fox when I was cycling through for the castle ended up paying dividends here because I'm able to clean up the opponent's board. I'm taking a look at the discard piles, and then I'm going to go ahead and crash just to see what I might be wanting to bring back with a Perdita if I top deck it, or making sure that I have like the 1-drops and stuff in the grave or in the discard pile. So the Rapunzel ends up healing the Mim Fox, so we still get the Rapunzel heal off, and now we still have 4 cards in hand, and we have the stronger board state. The opponent drops down a Queen's Castle and quests with their Flynn Rider, so again, forcing me to challenge that Flynn, otherwise they draw 2, and I'll have to discard, or I need a way to out the castle, and because I had both of my crabs in hand at the beginning, I'm likely not going to be able to out the castle unless I drew yet another Mim Fox, or I guess I could have drawn a Peter Pan Shadow, but it would take all 3 of my characters, the Shadow and the 2 on board right now, to take out the castle for 7 toughness. So I'm going to go ahead and ink the Mufasa, finally saying like, yeah, the Mufasa probably doesn't have too much value here. I'm going to end up challenging the Flynn and discarding the Piglet, because again, any 2-drop or less that I discard, it's like, that's fine, because if I end up getting a Perdita, like, I get it all back, right? So I'm going to end up dropping the Rapunzel to heal for 1, leaving the Queen's Castle on board, opting to out the character instead, because the Goat plus the Fox can take out the castle next turn, is what I'm thinking, unless the opponent has yet another Fox with a 1-drop to bounce it back, or a 2-drop, or a 3-drop, I guess technically, if they're on 6 ink now. But no, they don't have that. They're going to go ahead and drop Goats and Merfolk and pass turn. I dropped Bare Necessities, and there was a multitude of different lines I could have taken here. And again, you're just seeing the power of what this deck can do. I'm able to effectively deal with opponents' boards, but then I continually gain advantage through what I develop on my board. And like, if I'm able to stabilize here and slow the opponent down enough, I'm gonna just overwhelm them on the board here and just quest for game. Even though I'm far behind, like they're on 13 lore, I'm on 6. But the lines of play here are like Pinocchio, tap down, either Merfolk or Goat, and then take one of them out. Rapunzel, heal if I take out the Goat, because I can Rapunzel crash into the Goat, and then heal for 3 and draw 3. But I'm like, no, let me just do it this way, because the Bare Necessities probably doesn't have any value. Pinocchio, slow down the lore gain, take out the Merfolk, and then the opponent probably quests with the Goat here anyways, and as long as they don't have a bounce, I can crash my Rapunzel in next turn. And thankfully they play a rabbit, and I'm like, okay, just no snake, and we're good. They do end up questing with the Goat, so they're attempting to race me, and we draw the Fox, and I'm like, okay, this is like really good. So I'm going to go ahead and take deal 1 damage to the Goat in order to take 4 on my Rapunzel, so that I can drop my Rapunzel here and heal up what I just crashed. We draw 3, and we draw the Chernabog, which is really nice. Again, taking a look at the discard there, just to see how far am I along for the Chernabog. But we're going to go ahead and ink the Chernabog's followers, and then drop the Fox so that we can recycle Pinocchio. Pinocchio tap down the rabbit and just prevent the opponent from questing with anything. Fox will take out rabbit, and the other Fox will take out the Goat. The opponent gets a draw here, but look at the board state now, right? Like I was saying, it's just, and we haven't even seen a Perdita. which is like one of the key things the deck functions around. But the next matchup, we will see one. So here you can see I'm just threatening like game, I think exactly. I have 9 lore questing power on board. And I have like a Chernobog for follow-up. So unless the opponent has like Goat, Bounce, and like Fox to take out one of my threats, which they could take out the Rapunzel, but then I can take out one of theirs. They need like double Goat Bounce this turn and next turn, and something to slow me down in order to win. So they need a very specific combination of cards. Obviously they did not have it, and so I'm just going to play out my whole hand here and then just quest for game. And yeah, having a little bit of trouble questing there. The game was, I don't know, maybe I have too many things on board and it was giving me trouble. But yeah, that's a GG. Let's move on to the next match. All right, so we have the classic now, I guess you can call it. No, Ruby Amethyst versus Amber Amethyst, which is what the finals of Atlanta was, with the Amber Amethyst player coming out on top, of course. So in this matchup here, I'm going to try to aggressively mulligan for a 1-drop. And again, you're in a position with this deck where you can aggressively mulligan without worrying of drawing into high cost on inkables. So, you know, like my Snow White deck, I was playing like 8-drop Elsas. If I drew into that early on, it's like a dead card in your hand for like forever. So you're much safer to mulligan more aggressively with this deck. The opponent starts off with a 1-drop Rafiki. We're going to ink the Piglet and drop our Cinderella. So a little bit of a risk, because if they have Pinocchio, they obviously gain a ton of advantage here. But again, dropping the Pinocchio doesn't, it's like after you get the advantage off of it, it doesn't really do too much else. They're going to go ahead and drop the Cusco though. And we're going to go ahead and ink a Cusco so we can drop our own. Unfortunately, no friends or bare necessities to sing with the Cinderella right now, so that's a little unfortunate, but we'll see what the opponent wants to do. They ink a Gaston, so they're on a strength heavy build, which is quite interesting. They're going to drop the Maleficent and pass after questing with the Cusco. We are going to ink Chernobog's followers and play Crab, I think, in order to boost our Cusco to take out theirs. Again, just trying to manage board presence, and if our Cusco gets challenged and banished, that's a-okay. It'll give us a card draw, which we need. Now, you see me with these Mufasas in hand, and I inked them in the last match because against Emerald Amethyst, the Mufasas probably don't represent too much of a threat. Like I said, the opponent probably just quests through them. However, in the Ruby Amethyst matchup, it's a way different story. Mufasa is probably one of your most high value cards because again, it's a play off of a Be Prepared that makes it very easy for you to have follow-up with. So the opponent crashes their Maleficent into our Cusco, giving us card draw, and we do draw into the Bare Necessities, which we're now able to play with the Cinderella in order to rip the Maui's Fishhook out of the opponent's hand, leaving them with a couple of challenge cards, quite interestingly enough. But we're going to go ahead and ink Simba, play out the Rabbit, and then take out the opponent's Maleficent with our Crab. So it's a little bit of a back and forth again, because we're on the draw, we have to play a little bit more reactive. If the opponent opts to trade their Rafiki into our Crab, that's fine, I guess. But they do have a way to bounce their Rabbit to get more card draw if they please, or just straight up drop that Maui and take out the Cinderella. Because we lost our Crab there, we don't have a way to like boost the Rabbit in order to take out the Maui. But they draw a Queen of Hearts, so they're on a challenge-focused build of Ruby Amethyst. Quite interesting, and funnily enough, like this version actually probably does better against my deck, or the deck that Joshua piloted, because you play the PERDITA engine, so you're playing a lot of low, 2-cost characters, which they're able to out more effectively because of the rush cards. So not a standard build of Ruby Amethyst by any means, because you don't normally see Queen of Hearts, but potentially a decent option for the opponent against this particular build. And I'm really debating here, do I want to, because I think I saw Pinocchio in hand off the Bare Necessities, and I'm like, am I really going to try to play out a 1-drop here? Probably not, because it just gets Pinocchioed and taken out. So both the Piglet and the Cinderella don't really represent too much right now, but you're going to see just how kind of crazy this deck gets. The opponent plays Pinocchio, and I'm like, yeah, they have them in Fox. I knew that as well. Bouncing back to Pinocchio and then trading. So again, not necessarily a terrible situation for me. Because now it is a little bit, because they got the friends there, but I knew they had Pinocchio and the Fox in hand, so they're able to wipe my board, generate some card advantage, and kind of survive with that Rabbit on field still, which does represent card draw. We're able to drop a Mufasa and pass, and these 3 Mufasas here are going to start putting in the work in just a bit. They drop an Arthur, so I'm like, oh, that's a bit of a problem. Let's see what we can do against that here. They opt to save their Rabbit, so they're not going to quest. They're playing a little bit more of a passive game. We know they have Pinocchio in hand. And again, Mufasa just represents a replacement body potentially, right? So we're just able to quest with them there. And I'm probably going to have to inks and pass, or am I not going to ink? I'm going to opt to keep everything in my hand because everything just seems too valuable. I think I've already inked 1 or 2 piglets, which is why I opted not to ink another piglet there, maybe. But yeah, they're going to quest with Chernobog, draw a card, and they're really valuing not losing this Arthur if they don't have a way to protect it, it seems. Because obviously it would seem, you know, quest with Rabbit, quest with Arthur, and bounce back Rabbit, draw a card, replay Rabbit, potentially draw another card. Oh, are they going to do that or no? But, you know, if they don't have a way to protect the Arthur, like, they're just going to lose the Arthur. So it represents a one-time 3 lore gain. You really want to have, like, the Mim Snake. They do have Mim Fox, so they could have quested with Arthur, bounce back Rabbit, and then drop Mim Fox, bounce back Arthur, and then replay Arthur. That was probably the better play. But they do end up crashing into the Mufasa, which, you know, they have to deal with eventually. And we just drop the... we top deck off a Cinderella, which is a little underwhelming, but that's how Mufasa goes sometimes. So we just put it in Exerted, and the opponent passes. If they would have inked, they could have replayed the Rabbit, so they opted to keep the Mim Snake. The Bare Necessities shows that that's their only inkable card. They have like multiple Rabbits, Tremaine, etc. So I can kind of see why they're opting to keep this Arthur on field, because they're going up against the deck that they're probably like, what the heck is this? But they know probably that I have exerting cards, but that's the only way that I can deal with the Arthur. So if they just leave it ready, they're clearly aiming for Tremaine's cycle, I think, at this point, right? So again, I'm just going to go ahead and drop another Mufasa. I have a Crab, which represents good value here. They top deck... oh no, did they already have that Maui in hand? Maybe when I looked at their hand with Bare Necessities, they probably did. So yeah, I mean, the Cinderella was exerted from Bare Necessities, I think. But this Crab is going to give us some good value here, boosting up the Rabbit so we can crash it into that Maui, which means, you know, we out the big threat, we draw a card off of the Rabbit, and then we just drop a Goat and start putting the lore pressure on the opponent here. So this Arthur, I don't know, kind of holding them back a little bit, but I don't know. They're never going to be in a position where this Tremaine is going to get tremendous value, because I'm either going to out like a Cusco or Mufasa in this case. And yeah, we get a Cusco off of that Mufasa. So again, a little underwhelming, but you know, this deck is built lower to the ground, so you can't really expect to hit bangers every time. Just the replacement for that card advantage is enough off the Mufasa here. Ideally, hitting a Perdita would be really nice, but it's totally manageable. Okay, here... All right, we're setting it up. We saw the opponent didn't have Be Prepared yet. We're going to go really wide, because if they Be Prepared this board, I draw, I gain a lore, and I get Mufasa follow-up, and it takes their whole turn to Be Prepared. So this is what I was talking about at the start, where I said this deck is like not necessarily Be Prepared proof, but it plays very well into Be Prepared. So I should not have quested with the Crab there. I just kind of got like quest happy, because yeah, this opponent gets free value off of this Tremaine now, and then they finally are able to use their Arthur to bounce back Tremaine and redrop it if they choose, and clear out another threat of mine, which is just going to be the Cusco. So they do have 6 cards in hand. I only have 2, but my board state is obviously way more developed, and I am slightly ahead in the lore, and my board state is such that I can more easily challenge into my opponent's stuff. They drop Maui instead of the Tremaine again to take out the Goat, and then they play out that Snake that they were holding that we saw from the Bare Necessities to save their Maui, recognizing that it probably represents even more value if they can drop it and continue to take out my big threats. So this is what's interesting here now. I'm going to go ahead and drop Perdita, and like I talked about, I can drop a Cinderella, force the Exert on this Mim Snake, and then take it out with my Fairy Godmother, which I am 1 ink away, if I ink this Simba, to play the Rapunzel and draw 3, which is really this Fairy Godmother could represent a draw 3. We know the opponent has a Maui. The odds that they drop Maui and try to throw it into the Fairy Godmother, though, is probably pretty low. They might have a Be Prepared, or they might be trying to dig for a Be Prepared at this point, because, again, our board state is such that this Perdita and this Mufasa are just representing way too much advantage, right? So you kind of see how this deck functions, and when you start getting into that mid-range / grind game towards the end, the deck seems to like really just start to run away with things, right? Even against Amethyst, a color that we know can close out games very effectively. So they opt for more card draw here. We're going to now use the Rapunzel to draw 3 off of that Fairy Godmother. Synergizes so well. Perdita, bring back another Cinderella to exert down the Rafiki. And again, I really should not have done this because, again, I know the opponent probably has a Be Prepared. They're digging for it, but I'm like, I just wanted to show it off. So we're going to go ahead and quest with everything because we're at 17 now. We have follow-up off of the Mufasa. We have card draw off of the Cusco if it gets banished. So the opponent draws, they quest with the rabbit. Instantly, you know the Be Prepared is coming. They do indeed drop it, wiping out my whole board. But look at my hand, look at their hand. I get Mufasa follow-up, which unfortunately is another Cinderella. So again, very underwhelming. Should have drew first and then used Mufasa. Then I would have hit the Fairy Godmother on board there, but that's okay. They're going to ink and drop a queen, and they just, and this is what I'm saying, like this unorthodox build of Ruby Amethyst actually does better against my version, apparently, but it's fine. We have another Perdita for follow-up. The opponent may have another Be Prepared. We know they have a Tremaine in hand, but Perdita is very Tremaine-esque proof, so to speak. We're going to drop a Simba in bodyguard mode because the Queen of Hearts can't run that over unless they have a crab, and even if they had a crab, they would still lose their Queen of Hearts. My Cusco is kind of making my board Tremaine proof, so they do need another Be Prepared here in order to make sure I don't go for game, or a Madame Medusa potentially to out the Perdita. But yeah, we're in a really good spot because yeah, they can't play that many interactions in order to deal with our threats. Okay, so they do have an out, which is wild, that like literally okay, that's really good against me right there. The most diabolical mind. And then they drop Tremaine, and I'm like, that's fine, right? Cusco, draw 1. Look at the advantage off of that right there. Perdita, bring back Cusco for free. Cusco, eat the Tremaine, and draw a card off it. They're on 3 cards in hand. A Tremaine on board. We're going to Pinocchio now. Tap down the Tremaine. Fox, bounce back the Pinocchio, and then quest with, or not quest, sorry, challenge the Tremaine with the Fox. We drop a Piglet, and I'm like, yeah, the Piglet is just game if you can't out it next turn because I just drop another character at quest for 3. And just like that, this deck has shown to be pretty resilient. Awesome to see it take the win out of that giant field. If you made it this far in the video, hopefully you liked it. Again, it was hard to just get matches because not a lot of people are probably playing Lab. They're all trying to play for Ursula's Return. So I just included, you know, I think I played like 4 matches, and these were the 2 ones where I could show the deck kind of doing what it needs to do. But yeah, let's see if it's going to be competitive in Ursula's Return. I think the Perdita lines are very interesting. But if you made it this far, again, thank you again for watching. Drop a like on the video if you enjoyed it. Quantum is out.